Hello, everyone. We're here today with Dr. Catherine Meeks. You may know Catherine best for her role as the founding executive director of the Absalom Jones Episcopal Center for Racial Healing, where Dr. Meeks orchestrated spiritual retreats and workshops engaging communities in the vital work of addressing oppression. She also spent 25 years at Mercer University chairing the African American Studies program and 9 years at Wesleyan College as the Clara Carter Cree Distinguished Professor of Sociocultural Studies. Her latest book release is the paperback version of The Night is Long, but Light Comes in the Morning. She previously published several other books, including The Quilted Life, Reflections of a Sharecropper's Daughter, and served as editor for Living into God's Dream, Dismantling Racism in America. Dr. Meeks was awarded the President Joseph R. Biden Lifetime Achievement Award and was so gracious to contribute to our book, How to Heal Our Divides, a Practical Guide. Catherine received honorary doctorates from Virginia Theological Seminary, the Seminary of the Southwest, and Berkeley Divinity at Yale University. She has degrees from Pepperdine University, Atlanta University, and Emory University. Dr. Meeks' expression of her commitment to wellness and freedom is captured in his current work as founding executive director and chief midwife of the Turquoise and Lavender Institute for Transformation and Healing. You can learn more at turquoiseandlavender.com. So, Catherine, it's wonderful to see you again. Many congratulations on
Thank
your
you.
incredible lifetime of achievement. And thanks so much for being here with us.
Well, thank you for having me, and thank you for all the amazing work you keep doing so faithfully to help make this planet a little bit more well.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's a privilege for me. Um, so is there anything else besides what I touched on there that you'd like people to know about you?
I think that's a pretty good summary. At least of the last handful of years here, and I'm grateful to have that be the summary. But that's good. You did well with that.
So before we talk about your book, I'd love to hear more about the Turquoise and Lavender Institute, including where the name
Yeah.
came from.
Well, if for those folks in the audience who are into colors and um, uh, uh, aromas and rocks, they will know maybe a little bit about that and appreciate that the energy systems that are contained in turquoise in the stone, and it's an ancient kind of energy system. That is what generated that part, turquoise. And then of course lavender has such a great track record as a healing herb. And so I wanted to have a name that would amplify what I want this institute to do, which is to be a more enlarged lens for looking at healing. Rather than just talking about racial healing, I want to talk about healing the planet. I
Hmm.
think we have to talk about and be concerned about planetary healing. And so this gave me that opportunity to enlarge that lens and to use these ancient images of turquoise. Turquoise has an ancient history, and so does lavender. And also I love those colors. I love those colors. And so my website has all turquoise and lavender and rocks and water and all those things that are very resonant with healing, because I just think that healing in every different direction is the thing we need to be focusing on in a general sense. And of course we need to be looking at racism and sexism and all that stuff. But that's not all there is. I mean, there is more to the healing paradigm than just talking about race or class or gender. And that's why the name, that's why the perspective that I'm trying to bring here with this new endeavor.
Hmm. Wow. Good for you. I love the enlargement to include in the environment and climate change.
Yeah,
Um,
well, and just it's even bigger. It is environmental, but it's also we need to reconnect to the natural world. We need to reconnect to those rhythmic systems. We need to reconnect ourselves to something beyond us, that's something bigger, something that can teach us things if we pay attention. You know, the reciprocity in nature, we need to know something about because we've gotten so grounded in greed and looking for what's mine. And you look at nature, how things work with each other and share. That is how life is supposed to be. And we've lost contact with that.
Mhm, mhm,
And if we want to be well, we're going to have to reconnect to it some kind of way.
mhm, mhm. So let's get to the book. As I mentioned, the title is "The Night is Long, but Light Comes in the Morning," and this is the paperback version of, the hardback that came out earlier. Um,
Mhm.
how how did the original book come about?
Well, I I have always wanted to write short pieces about big subjects so that people could take it in small bites rather than having to read a whole book and try to digest the pieces of it, to just give those ideas out in smaller bites, which are known as meditations. And so when Church Publishing asked me, they actually asked me about writing a book for children, for young people. And I said, I don't write for young people. I love to talk to young people and be with them, but that's not my best audience to be trying to write for. But I said I would be glad to write a book on racial meditations, racial healing and meditation form. And they said, yeah, we would like you to do that. And I started writing and wrote these 48 meditations that zero in on some of the major issues surrounding the racial divide, but that are is encapsulated in 5 or 6 pages rather than you got to read a whole book to talk about
Mhm,
racial healing, or you got to read a whole book to talk about um, make it invisibility or whatever the topic is here. People can read it in short spaces and sit with it and think about it. And many people have told me they've used this book as a part of their meditation practice, that
mhm,
they've read a little bit, they've read it over a long period of time. Because if you just read one a week and thought about it, or read one a day, or one every now and again, however you want to do it, whatever works for you. But what I wanted to do was create a document that would be good for conversation as well. So not only is it good for like one person reading it meditatively, it's also good for like group discussion because you can take it in little chunks and work with it rather than having to try to work with a whole book. So, and I'm very pleased about the response that the copy got, and now the soft cover one has included. I've done a discussion guide that's included in this one, so it makes it a little bit different from the first one. And it also leads people a little more deeply into group discussion.
mhm, mhm. So, who do you think the target audience is? Who would you say will get the most out of the book?
Well, I think that's hard to say, but I think any group of people, any person, first of all, that's trying to enlarge their perspective, that's trying to see a little more clearly what this whole divide is about around us. Also, the very first few chapters, first few meditations deal with the inner work that we need to do in order to see more clearly what's going on in the outer world. And that's anybody, anywhere, anytime needs to be doing that, because all of us have to work on our who we are and coming up with understanding that person better. And then for people who want to share conversations, I think it gives them some language maybe to talk with folks about things like racialized trauma and some of those things that we don't talk about very much, that it gives some language for that. And I think it also allows people to be together and be in these discussions without it having to be so personalized. They can take these meditations as a jumping off point and be a little bit more universal. Sometimes I think the hardest part about trying to deal with tough subjects like race or class or gender is that people get so personal
Mhm.
and it's more than about you. I mean, it is about you, but it's about a collective, and it's difficult to see that at times. And I think my book helps to enlarge that a bit so people can
Mhm.
kind of get out of that. It's not an attack on you. It is an analysis of what is going on, and you're here in the world, so it does affect you. But it's just, every conversation about what's broken in the world is not about you as an individual, even though sometimes I find in my work that people don't seem to be able to separate themselves enough to step back far enough. You sometimes need to step back a while before you can see what's right in front of you.
Mhm. Mhm. So, the book, as you said, has 48 meditations. They're organized into 8 different groups. Things like
Hmm.
seeing and brokenhearted, inner world, outer world. How did you
Hmm.
decide to group them that way?
Well, I was trying to think of like what is the trajectory that you follow in some kind of process way if you wanted to try to talk about you're somebody who something's wrong, you don't quite know what it is, you want to get into it deeper, and how do you start? And so that's why I started with the inner journey stuff, because I think that is where you start. You start with looking at yourself. You start with interrogating how come I think this way? What do I think about people that aren't like me? And why do I think that? And why do I keep thinking that? And what have I learned that told me that the way I'm thinking is not the way to think? You interrogate yourself. I mean, that's the first. You interrogate yourself rather than projecting onto other people and trying to make them be the answer to your questions. And so at least that's how I think healing works. And
Mm.
so that's why I started with that. And then I just tried to think of what are some of the other things that have to happen once you start to wake up a little bit. You have to stay willing to keep looking. I love one of the stories in the book about the gentleman who's looking for his key, and he tells his friend he lost his key in the house, but the light is better outside, so he's outside looking for it. And so I think that in this journey toward healing, we oftentimes look in the places that don't have the answers,
Mm.
and but we look in those places because those places suit us better. And so that's all of us. I mean, we wish we could find the answers where we want them to be, but the
Yeah.
answers are where they are. And if you really want them, you've got to stay willing to go there. And sometimes we're just not willing. And so that when I read that story, I thought, this is priceless.
Yes.
This so points to the way we are. He said, I lost it in the house, but the light's better out here. So
No, that does so vividly apply to
yes, yes.
our human
So
condition.
those all those headings are to kind of try to talk about some of the guideposts along the way that you've got to kind of realize it's this big umbrella. I mean, like brokenhearted, being brokenhearted. I think the only way to ever do sustainable healing work is to be willing to be brokenhearted and know your own woundedness, which is what our culture doesn't invite us to do.
Mhm,
Our
mhm.
culture invites us to play games and pretend and to be
Yeah.
always ready and on it. And we're not. I mean, we're just not. I love Henry Nouwen's book, The Wounded Healer, because I think that image is so vividly instructive of who we are. We're all wounded. We've all been wounded by something. And in this culture, we've all been wounded by white supremacy. Every single solitary person here has had some kind of jab in their psyche that's come from that structure. And
Mhm.
so that nobody's got the whole picture. Nobody knows all the answers. We're all in this together. And we're just a bunch of wounded folks telling each other where bandage closets are. And so, and I believe that, I see that, and I want to say, so brokenheartedness allows you to admit to your woundedness. So now you're not some superior coming in with the answer. You're just another pilgrim on the way. and you found these pilgrims who maybe a little further down the road than you, so they can help you with these closets, and you can go together to find other bandages, and that's how community works. And we care about each other. We don't spend time in playing games of supremacy with one another, which is too much of what happens. So the book is trying to say, here's a process, and you can enter into this and you can go step by step, and you don't have to try to do it all in one day. There are 48 meditations that you don't have to sit down and read all at once. You can read them. You can take a year. You can take 2 years. You take what you need, but you do have to get on the path. And I think I say that over and over in the book. Nobody
Mhm.
can tell you what the timeline is, but you do have to be willing to engage the journey. I mean, it's not like you get to sit on the sidelines. That's not one of the options.
So speaking of further down the road, in the foreword of the book, Michael Curry says that it's written in the spirit of the late Howard Thurman, Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, and Thich Nhat Hanh. That's mighty praise. Why do
Yeah,
you
it's
think?
mighty embarrassing.
I think it's wonderful and appropriate, but why do you think he drew those comparisons?
Well, I think he did because, for one thing, they talk about the inner journey, outer journey. I think that too much of the work that in this arena around race in particular, and maybe healing in general, but I know race in particular, deals with the external too much and not the internal. We it's like, if you fix the world out here, then my life will be fine. Well, no, that's not quite how that works. You have to fix the life inside yourself, and the world will be better because you worked on what's inside of you, which is what you have some control over, actually. So I think that those people that he mentions, particularly Thurman and Thich Nhat Hanh, I know more about their work on inner journey than I do Rabbi Heschel, but I have great regard and respect for Rabbi Heschel and his commitment, and particularly his commitment to Dr. King and the civil rights struggle. So there's a balance in my book. There's an attempt to balance the inner and the outer, the pastoral and the prophetic. I mean, I think that was what Bishop Michael was responding to, was seeing that kind of rhythm between, you got to do this inner work, you got to do this outer work, you got to do this outer work, you got to do this inner work. You don't get to, it's not a matter of choice. It is a matter of, the only choice you have here it is how you do it and when you do it, but you have to do both. You don't get to just sit in your room and be totally conscious about who you are and go do nothing in the world. That's not one of your options. And your option is not to go running around in the world trying to fix everything, and then you wreck yourself, which is what we see a lot of, people trying to fix the world out there because they can't stand to live in the world inside of themselves. And what we need are people who have who have been engaging their own stuff, but no, I'm going out here as this broken person, but I've got my intention turned toward inner healing, and I want to be a vessel for outer healing in the larger world. And I think that was what Bishop Michael told me once, that he said of me. He didn't actually tell me. He was talking about me. I think in my presence, I believe I heard that he saw me as being a person with a pastoral voice and a prophetic voice,
Hmm.
which is sort of kind of a funny thing, because usually people are pastors or they're prophets. And when you get caught in having to do both, it's a much harder way to live, because it's easier to just be in one of those and not both of them. But I think he's right. I do think that I'm willing to be the compassionate truth teller, but I'm also very concerned about people's well-being and their inner, the quality of your inner life matters, because if everybody had a good inner life, they wouldn't have the need to project any stuff out onto other people, and we could mitigate against some of the meanness in the world if people were clearer about how God is for them interested in who they are and wanting them to have the best life possible. Howard Thurman says that what the world needs is for people to do what makes them come alive. And whatever makes you come alive, you go out in the world and do it. And that's what the world needs. Well, just think what kind of world we would have if everybody was doing that. That everybody was out doing the stuff they loved that made them come alive, being grounded and centered and thankful. There would be nobody who's trying to kill anybody or do anything bad to anybody, because you would have no need to do that, because you would be feeling good about yourself and wanting to bring your gift to the world. I mean, that is such an amazing thing to think about. And it's possible because people could do that if we could ever get folks to get out of the traps of fear and
Mhm.
scarcity and believing, not believing that they're important. I mean, it's really sad to think about that here in the 21st century, with all of the resources we have, that suicide is one of the major causes of death in this country among young people and old people.
Mm.
And that, to me, that's so that, I mean, we just have to pay attention to that we are somehow creating this notion that life is just not worth living to young people, to teenagers, and then to people past 65 or 70. It's like that little space in there somewhere where people still think it's okay. If you make it, I guess if you make it to 25, you stick around. I don't know, but that's sad to me. It's just really sad. And
Mm.
so I think that a lot of it is grounded in this whole no real sense of being all right and being worth something and being important to anything you just hear. And the world outside is a mess and you can't navigate it, and the world inside of you is a mess. So why bother? And that's we have got to pay attention to that. I do believe.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, it speaks to the mounting pressures, in many different
Mhm.
directions people face.
But
Um,
those pressures are, a lot of them are derived from the misunderstanding of reality
mhm.
and the made up the fantasy, the what is important in the world. I mean, we need to reconnect to things that show us a different kind of reality, I think. And I think that's when you read the native things from the native people, they were so connected to nature and they understood that world, and that world was enlivening to them, and African peoples as well. There's a kind of, and probably Europeans before they got carried away with themselves, that there's a connection to something that makes sense, that you can come back to, that is consistent. The sun rises every morning, the stars shine at night. You know, if you can be connected to that kind of stability, then you don't have to get blown around by every act of instability. But we don't pay much attention to that. And Thurman says that if you don't have that connection, then you're just blown by every wind that comes by. And he said, like the weeping willow tree. And it just takes a tiny breeze to blow a weeping willow tree. So you really do have to get grounded somewhere so that you're not freaked out by everything that comes past you. Because the world is a freaky place. I get it. It is, but it doesn't have the final answer, I don't think.
you have this one quote in the book that I just love, that is, the house is on fire, and it's time to stop standing around debating which fire extinguisher is best. Well, I think that's a
Yes.
great meme on social media, but
You
um,
think so?
yes, I do. I do. I was going to make one up, and quote you on it. So I think I'll do
Well,
that.
why don't you go ahead and send it to me and then I'll share it too.
Okay, good. I will. I will. Um, I, clearly. the world is on fire, and it seems like the fire
Hmm.
is getting more out of control. Um, how do you see the book as a help with motivating people?
Mm. Well, I hope that if folks will be interested enough to take the book and work with it, that it will be people coming to the realization that they don't have answers. They have questions that they don't have answers for. And maybe this book will be a tool, will help them explore those questions more deeply and lead them somewhere to an answer. I love the image from Letter to a Young Poet when Rilke says, learn to love the questions, because it's in asking the questions that you might someday work into an answer. So I think that people need to I think that folks who pick up this book and start reading it, if they can hear, if they can find enough, if they can hear enough to resonate with what is true here, is there truth here that I need to pay attention to? And Thurman argues that when you read truth, it resonates with the truth you know already. So I hope that they know something that led them to the book in the first place, or that the spirit led them there, the angels or the ancestors or whoever, but somehow they got the book in their hand or on their Kindle or however they got it. It's audio as well, so maybe they just start listening to it. But to get on this path of something's got to change. I'm not going to stand here and debate about fire extinguishers. I'm picking up this one and I'm going with it, and it'll go where it goes. I think that's a gift that my book can be in this moment of chaos, because then people can begin to maybe settle in a little bit. I really encourage people to try to get out of the echo chamber, to shut down the all the voices that keep telling you to be scared and afraid and mean and angry and unkind and all. We don't need those voices. So try to eliminate them. Maybe the book will help them with that if they will get into it and start trying to read it sort of meditatively. So I'm hoping that those kinds of things will happen. The Education for Ministry for the Episcopal Church has asked me to design an 8-week course based on this book.
Good.
So that's coming out in the fall. I hope folks will use that course and this book, at both the audio and the written forms, to begin to take stock. You have to stop somewhere. You have to, I love the image of the hurricane. I hear, if you get to the eye of a hurricane, it's if you can get to the eye of it, that it's like a still
Oh,
point. It's
yeah,
calm.
yeah.
So the
I've
hurricane is
Googled
out here
before.
swirling, and we have to get to the eye, and we have to sit in the eye of it. And that to me is an important response to make to the chaos, because if you just get in the chaos, you just get blown around with it. You don't get to you can't have any impact on it.
Hmm. Hmm. Another thing you write in the book is that these meditations are the best effort I know how to make at telling the truth, because I trust that the truth will set us free. We
Mhm.
decide how much of the truth to allow into our hearts, and that depends mostly on our willingness to be disrupted. Um,
Hmm.
and how many people want to be disrupted, right? I mean, not
Right.
much. Um, so,
Nobody, if you got good sense.
so it's, back to this question of, how do we motivate more people to even consider internal change?
Well, I think what you do is you stay faithful yourself. You stay faithful, you stay focused every day to that journey inward, that journey outward. And everywhere you go and everybody you talk to, that's the energy you take with you. You take that energy and that energy is powerful. That energy influences. That energy is noticeable. and it's not something that you have that much. I know this because that's how I live, and I know the responses that come. Not that I'm walking around thinking I got to get this person to think I'm authentic. No, just be authentic. Just be authentic. Just be this honest human being. Just be this kind person, and it will affect folks. And if I don't spend my time trying to think now I'm going to be in this room with these 10 people. How am I going to get them to do this, this, and this? I spend my time thinking I've been given this opportunity to be with these people. How can I be the best person I can be and say the best things I can say? And then God is up to God to do something with that. And that's my job. That is my job. I cannot worry about how many folks are going to hear, if folks are going to hear. My job is to be the best vessel I can be. And it's God's work to do something with that work because I'm not in the position to get anybody to do anything. All I'm in the position to do is to share the best truth I can tell. And then it's up to people what they do with that. And I over and over and over, I see the fruit of that position when people I just got home last night from Pennsylvania, and a 93-year-old woman told me Saturday, I talked about developing a practice of generosity and giving away stuff instead of holding on to it. And this woman's 93, and she said to me, your talk was really good, and I've got a lot of stuff I need to get rid of. And on Monday morning, she said, I'm going to start gathering up stuff that's going out of my house. And I, I can't make anybody be there. I mean, she heard what I was saying. I make greeting cards that I give away as I announce to people I'm working on an intentional spiritual practice of generosity. And my outward evidence of that is these cards that I make, and I take them with me and I give them away. And I can't make you be generous. I can only share with you that I think generosity is one of the tools we have against the greed and the capitalist grip that we're all in and the chaos that is causing, that to be generous in the midst of that, to bring the energy of generosity will be transformative. But I can't make you see that, believe that. I can only tell you I'm committed to that. And here's my outward manifestation of that commitment. And I make beautiful cards. I love making them. I gave away 100 cards this weekend. I've made and given away now 300 cards. And I'm going to make another. I'm going to Harrisburg on Friday, and I'm making 100 cards between now and Friday to take with me to give to those folks. But the practice, the intention and the practice and the authenticity is what changes people. It is what invites people into a new way to think and be. And so we spend too much time trying to think how to manipulate people into change rather than trying to live so that people see the change and they see the fruit of our living, and they want to engage with that some kind of way. They want to investigate that, which is all Jesus ever said we were supposed to do anyway. We're the ones that got caught up in that we need to make commercials and, we need to have better websites and all that stuff. We know what we need to be is more authentic.
Well,
We
at
need
least
to be more committed.
that seems to be something that is more appreciated now, authenticity.
Yeah.
I have that feeling at least.
Well, I think that people respond to authenticity because they have gotten weary of the sham
Yeah,
culture. We
yeah.
we have so much stuff that's just a sham. It's just not grounded anywhere. It's all greed based. It's tiring. It's not enlivening at all. So much of what we do across the complete board, including our religious institutions, has got no life force in it. It's just we got a lot of trappings, and people are tired of trying to step up to the plate in all of those requirements. I think I do believe that. And that's part of why people are killing themselves because they're tired. And then other people are killing themselves not by shooting themselves, but by working themselves to death or worrying themselves to death. So I do think when people run across somebody that's peaceful, that's calm, that's not freaked out, that can extend yourself beyond yourself. That you can step back and let somebody be in front of you. You can let somebody have your parking spot. You can let somebody go in front of you at the grocery store. You can actually smile at people and mean it. That has an effect upon people because it's not common. It's just not common. And it should be common, but it's not. People being, even good customer service is not common. We get so bad at it. We get so surprised when really tries to help us in a store
Yeah.
and doesn't act like you had no business bothering them. You're the customer service department, but you don't want to be bothered. And that's kind of strange. So I think you're right. I think people are tired of the hypocrisy. And so I think our best way to communicate to get people to get on a different path is to be on the path ourselves, to be
Yes.
authentically committed to the path ourselves and to be willing to allow people to enter that path however and whenever they can without being browbeaten or shamed or anything, but to just accept people as we go. People respond to being accepted as a valuable human being because at the end of the day, that's what everybody wants.
Mm, mm. So, just switching gears a little bit, I think you know that in our audience we have quite a few aspiring authors or relatively new authors. What
Mhm.
advice do you have for them as they move
Mhm.
that journey?
But the first thing I think, Brian, is that you need to write what your soul requires you to write. You need to be clear that the message that you're trying to put out is one that you have got to put out. But because if not, you're just writing something because you know how to write. And I don't know that just writing because we know how to put sentences together will have the same impact as writing out of the depths of your own soul and your own journey and your own trying to make sense out of this complicated thing called life, because life is complicated and you can't be reductionistic about that and flip about it. You got to just deal with it. And I think that when people have been dealing with that inside themselves and then they find, I want to say something about this. I want to tell other people what I'm learning or what I've been thinking or how I feel, that then brings energy to the page. And I can tell quickly the difference between a book that somebody wrote because they're just seeking scholarship and one that somebody wrote because they were compelled to write it. I mean, you know the difference in those kinds of books, or the
Absolutely.
books that people keep writing the same book, they just call it something different, and so to be authentic, to be writing what you somebody said to me, a quote from somebody else, that you have to do what your soul requires. She said, I have to do what my soul requires me to do. And that just struck me like a lightning bolt. Like, that's right. If you do what your soul requires you to do, it has such great impact upon everybody. And people, I'll be 79 in a couple of weeks, and people look at me and say, well, how come you have so much energy? Because I'm doing what my soul requires of me.
Amen.
And
Amen.
the energy is reinforced. It generates energy, that kind of commitment to being who you are to be. So if you want to write, you just got to live an authentic life, and then you write out of that space. And then you do have to be disciplined. I mean, it's not always a cakewalk, and it may not always be easy to do. You have to be committed to it. You have to think about it. You have to, to be a good writer, you have to practice. but the first thing is to be compelled to do it by something inside of yourself. And you can't be doing it because you're going to make any money, because most of us aren't making enough money writing to live on what we make. We would be
Mhm.
in pretty bad shape if we
Mhm.
had to do that. So it's about you have a message that you just want the world to have, and you want to figure out the best way to do that.
Mhm.
And writing about it is one way to do that. There are other ways to do it, but writing a book or writing a essay or whatever is a way to do it. And that is a way and one of the ways. And I think that when we write out of those spaces, many good things come from it.
So let's talk a little bit about the future for you.
Mm,
I know you've got speaking engagements coming up.
yeah.
Are there any other book projects or
Yeah.
any kind of projects that you have on the radar screen that you can talk about?
Well, what I have in my head and what I get to is we're gonna see how that works. But the next thing I think I want to work on, I have lived now. I have rheumatoid arthritis. I have two hip implants, and I have to use my little walker when I get around. And I'm gonna be 79, like I said. So I'm trying to keep myself mobile. So I think the next book I'm gonna write is gonna be about living with a chronic illness and
Hmm.
having the chronic illness as tutor. Chronic illness
Oh,
as tutor for
cool.
my life journey is, I think, that's what I'm feeling the most passionate about. And then the second thing on my list is to write a Jungian kind of look at the book of Luke,
Hmm.
because I love Luke a lot. And I think I have a few things I could say about that from a Jungian perspective that might be engaging. I would love to see scripture be made more alive and accessible to people. And I think that we do it a disservice by not doing that and helping people to really get in it and have it live for them. So those are the two things that I'm kind of in playing around with, but I've had to really shift gears, shifting out of running a center where I had to raise a bunch of money and manage a staff to now being kind of a one-woman show and kind of getting into the rhythm of that. So I'm trying to pay attention and not run over myself.
Well,
And
do
the
you
and the
find
biggest thing I have to do is take care of myself.
do you find it freeing to be able to have that flexibility and lack of
Hmm.
what do I want to say, obligation
Hmm.
and lack of other restraints that you had before?
Yes, it took a while though. I mean, it takes a while to shift
Sure.
out of one kind of space into another. It's been going on now my second year, and I've really shifted out of it, and I'm very glad not to have to be raising money and managing a staff and then trying to manage a center and keep it in the forefront and do all the stuff you have to do to keep it alive. I don't have to do that. I'm getting to do what I love, which is writing and speaking and thinking about things and working on the schedule that I make up. Whenever I get up when I want to, I go to bed when I want to. I say yes to what I want to say yes to and no, and without apology or consultation or anything. And I really do
Sure.
love that. It's
That's
great.
great. I'm very glad
Yes.
for you. I'm very glad you have the opportunity to do that.
Yes. I'm loving it. And I'm so grateful. And I just see many joyous things happening. I'm very grateful every day to be this person, to have this opportunity and to try to share. I just want the planet to be better. I want to leave it
Amen.
better than I found it.
Amen. Well, for now, everyone should go check out The Night is Long, but Light Comes in the Morning. And also check out the turquoiseandlavender.com, the new
Mhm.
organization and website that Catherine has. Catherine, again, thank you so much for all of your work. You're just such a role model for all of us.
Thank
And
you.
it's really been an honor to, share a little bit of your journey with folks.
Thank
So
you.
thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you for doing this, Brian, and thank you for your faithfulness and continuing to do the things you're doing. Every one of our voices is what we need, and more voices need to join the chorus because it's our job to leave the earth better than we found it.
Amen. Amen.
Yes.
Thank you again.
All right. Take care.